So previously, the system existed as the degree plan submission system. So the only document that the students were able to file electronically through the system was the degree plan. We have now expanded it and renamed it to the document processing submission system. So we were able to keep the same DPSS acronym, but it now includes some additional forms and also offers some expanded capabilities for students. So some of the things that we're going to be talking about today are some highlights from the existing system, additions to the DPSS, which has then required some new terminology and some new rules. And then for a little bit, there's going to be some rules related to who can submit by paper and who can submit electronically. And then finally, I'm going to preview the system for you. Okay, so some highlights from the existing system is that the workflow for the system is going to remain the same. So the student is going to submit a document. In a lot of cases, that's going to mean they're going to need to audit that document and then submit it. Then it is going to, in most cases, go to a pre-committee staff approver. If your program does not have a pre-committee staff approver, we definitely recommend that you have one. It's not a requirement, but it is really good to have somebody who is dedicated to looking to make sure that all of the program's requirements are listed within the document like they're supposed to. From the pre-committee staff approver, then it's going to go to the committee chair or co-chair, as the case may be. Once that approval is given, then it's going to go out simultaneously to the remaining committee members. Then it's going to go to the person that is the department approver, and then it's going to come to the Office of Graduate Studies. So that's what happened previously with degree plans, and we're using that same workflow basis for the new documents that are within the system. And then another thing that is remaining the same, but is probably going to see an increase in use, is the ability for certain faculty members to proxy approve for other faculty members. So every department has listed at least one, in some cases more than one, person who is the department approver for that particular department. And so that person, in a lot of cases, is the graduate advisor for that department, is going to receive the notification by email and be in the official workflow for the document to be approved. And with degree plans, most of the department approvers were able to keep up with the volume because while in some departments, I mean, they do have a lot of students, it was only one degree plan at a time. But now that we've expanded and all of the petition documents are going to come through the DPSS, we anticipate that it's going to be a little more difficult for that one faculty member to keep up with all the documents that are coming through. So every program has submitted an authorized signer sheet to the Office of Graduate Studies. And all of the same way that all of those people have the ability to sign a paper form for any faculty in their particular program, they also have the ability to proxy approve for people within the DPSS. Okay, so the people who have permission to proxy approve are not going to be receiving notifications for, if they're not the real committee member, but they do have the ability as the proxy approver to go in and approve for someone else. And I'll show you exactly where that is in the system when we preview the system at the end. But what happens is there is a choice at the top that faculty have that says proxy. And if someone is set up as a proxy approver and they choose that proxy tab, then all of the documents that they can proxy for are going to come up in a list. So they would then need to scroll through, find the particular document that they're looking for, open that document. At the bottom of the page, there's actually a place for them to approve, but they have to indicate who they're approving for. And so, it would say that Professor X has approved for Julie Wilson, and then, it'll go through the system so that we have record that the real committee member did not approve it or the real department approver did not approve it. Someone went in and proxy approved for that person. So like I said, that proxy approval functionality has always been in the system, but like I said, it just didn't get utilized very much. And so again, we anticipate with the expansion of the volume that's going to be coming through the system now that the proxy approver functionality is going to be able to be utilized a lot more. So now to highlight the new additions to the system. The first and most important is that the 5 petition forms are now available to be filed through the electronic system. So the student is able to file a degree plan, and then they're able to make changes to that degree plan all through the electronic system. The other big change is that the degree plan is now a fluid document. So previously in the old degree plan system, the student submitted a degree plan, and that degree plan, they might submit petitions to change by paper, but the document that was kept in the DPSS was a static document, and it was the first document that they submitted, and it did not reflect any of their changes. But because a lot of students are way more familiar with the DPSS than they are with running a degree evaluation in Howdy, they would go back to that static document in the system and be very frustrated because they had submitted changes and why weren't those changes being reflected. So that was one of the improvements that we have added, is that now as quickly as a petition to make a change to the degree plan is approved by the Office of Graduate Studies, that update will reflect in the degree plan that is kept in the DPSS. So the students will have the ability to see the most current information in the DPSS, and they'll have the ability to see that most current information in the Howdy portal as well. And we're excited about that because we think that that's going to help you, it's going to help them have more information about what their degree plan looks like, and exactly what all changes they have made or maybe still need to make. It does also contain a way, the new system, for students to pursue more than one degree at a time. Okay, and we have some dual programs, master's programs. The most of those are located in the College of Architecture, but those are approved programs that allow students to kind of double count things between the 2 degrees. So those have been in existence for a couple of years. But now what we are also going to allow is students to pursue 2 degrees at the same time but in those cases they are going to have to pursue fully a master's degree and complete all of those requirements and then fully complete the requirements for a PhD. There's not going to be any ability to double dip. But we do have a number of departments who admit students to a PhD program, but because of different reasons, sometimes it's licensing for the particular field that they're in, other times it's just sort of the philosophy of that particular emphasis. They really need to stop off along the way and get a master's degree and then continue in the PhD program. And so what has been happening to date is that they were either started as a PhD student, transferred down to the master's, then went back to the PhD, or they started as a master's, and then moved up to the PhD. But what we're now going to allow is programs to state that it is okay for their students to, be primarily a PhD student, but secondarily pursue that master's degree, so that they will be technically pursuing both degrees at the same time. And so if we are going to offer some special training for programs who are interested in pursuing that, because like I said, that you're going to need, kind of some additional information, and I hope to get that set up in the next week or two. But, that is an option now. And then finally, there's also going to be an option for individual students to work out the opportunity for them to pursue 2 different degrees. So for example, we have 2 PhDs in electrical engineering right now who have worked deals. One is doing a master's in statistics and another is doing a master's in architecture. And so, those were specific deals that the students were able to work between the individual departments. And so, we're not encouraging that. We're not saying that that is a requirement by any means. We definitely want to leave that to the individual programs to make a decision on a student-by-student basis, but it now is possible for that to happen, and this system includes the mechanism to get those students into the 2-degree programs. And like I said, I'll show you what that looks like when we go through the system in the end. There are some expanded features for the pre-committee staff approvers. So a lot of you may have noticed that in late August, early September, we requested that all programs submit new authorized signer forms for us. And part of what we had realized is that when the DPSS was originally designed, the faculty side had a lot more functionality and a lot more ability to see things than the pre-committee staff approver side. And for whatever reason, way before I was in the Office of Graduate Studies, rather than enhancing the pre-committee staff approver features, they were just putting staff people in the faculty side. And we really felt like we didn't want to do that. We wanted to keep staff in the staff side and faculty in the faculty side. And so what we did is we've now enhanced the features and the ability to search for things and keep up with the students in the various statuses as they matriculate through the system. And so, like I said, the pre-committee staff approvers do now have that functionality as well. And again, I'll show you in the system where you need to look for that. And then finally, we've added some specific choices to the petition for waivers and exceptions. So the petition for waivers and exceptions is kind of the generic form that if one of the other petition forms isn't what they're trying to do, they can use the petition for waivers and exceptions to request it. And so right now it is just a place where you say what you want to do, you say why you want to do it, but there's no real definition to it. But the two largest reasons that we receive petitions for waivers and exceptions are because students want to waive the residency requirement because they're employed full-time or because they want to take a leave of absence. And so there's a lot of confusion because they're looking for a leave of absence form, not realizing that is the petition for waivers and exceptions. So what we've done is make those specific choices within the petition for waivers and exceptions. So hopefully it'll be a little more clear for the students. Now there is still an other option, and so like I said, they can still, if they are in a circumstance where they need something else, they can still type in what that reason is, what that request is and what the reason is, but it'll be a little more clear for them if they're interested in doing the waiver of residency or the leave of absence. Okay? The other thing that I forgot to say at the beginning is feel free to stop me if you have any questions. I'll definitely take questions at the end, but like I said, this is pretty informal, so if you have questions as we go along, please don't hesitate to ask them. So another new change is that we do have to have some new terminology within the document processing submission system. Whether you may realize it or not, it is actually very difficult to recreate electronically what we as humans can do. And so in Office of Graduate Studies right now, if we receive 5 different documents at the same time for the student, we can figure out the order in which those need to be processed so the student can accomplish what the student wants to do. But replicating that electronically is a little bit more difficult. And so what we chose to do is create the petitions in a little bit different way electronically than they have been by paper. So the first document is called an MDD, and that's what a student is going to use if they want to do something to their major, degree, or department. They want to change it because they're going to move from a PhD down to a master's. They want to add a master's to a PhD, or if they've already added, they want to delete and take away the secondary program. So any of those changes are going to be done with an MDD. The second form is going to be called a long form, and the long form contains the petition for course change, the petition for committee change, the petition for extension of time limits, and the petition for waivers and exceptions. And so that can come with any one of those forms or any combination of all 4 of those forms at one time. And so this way, if a student is needing to make more than one change, they can still do it in one form, but we get that one form at the same time, and we don't have to guess exactly what the student is trying to do. Now, what this means with the rules is that because the student is now going to only be able to have one overall petition in queue at any time, they are no longer going to be able to make a change to their major, degree, or department and then change their degree plan by a coursework petition and a committee petition. They're going to need to submit the MDD, and then we will delete the degree plan that is existing, and then they're going to need to submit a whole new degree plan. Because one of the other changes is that we are going to limit students to one approved degree plan at a time unless they're in a program where they have permission to have 2 degree plans. Right now in the old system, students could have up to 3 degree plans at one time, and we actually received a lot of degree plans where the student already had an approved degree plan on file, and rather than making those changes by petition, they would just submit a whole new degree plan, and then we would have to reject the degree plan back and tell them to do the petition. So what we've done is we've limited that option so that the students can only have one approved degree plan in the system at a time. The other reason for that is that a lot of the other auto-populating features within the petitions are based upon that one approved degree plan. And so we didn't want the system to have to guess. So like I said, so the student is only going to be able to have one approved degree plan at a time, again, unless they're in a program where they can have two. And then they're also going to be able to only have one petition in queue at a time. Now, as quickly as the petition that they have in process gets approved by the Office of Graduate Studies, I mean, within 15 seconds they can start a new petition, and that's fine. But we're hoping that this will make the students be a little more strategic in their decisions when they're filing documents. Because right now, I mean, you know, we will receive 8 to 10 individual petitions for students, and it would be, I mean, what we would prefer is that we receive one petition that has those 8 to 10 changes on it. And so, you know, like I said, we think that this will, I mean, again, because of the fact that we were moving into the electronic system, this was really a requirement so that we didn't have to try to guess if something got to us first before something else did, you know, what the student was trying to do. But then also, again, we think that it'll help the students be a little more strategic in their changes because, you know, again, it's fine with us. They can make as many changes as they want to make, but they are going to have to make them one at a time until the information can be processed by the Office of Graduate Studies.
Can they, if the long form has not been approved yet by OGS, can they go in and add another petition to an already existing long once they submit it?
Once they submit it, yes. And Tina, thank you, because that's a good point. The long form can have up to 4 petitions within it, so that's okay. It's just one long form at a time. Right, and they can't go in, correct, because again, as quickly as the student audits and submits it, then it's going to go through the workflow and the student is going to lose control of it after that. What they could do is then get the next person in the approval process to reject it back to them and make that addition and start the process over, but they're going to be stuck with that one petition in queue until it's either rejected back to them or it gets approved by the Office of Graduate Studies. Okay, now the final thing that is going to be a little bit different is that we do have a number of students who have paper degree plans because we did not make mandatory the submission of electronic degree plans until the fall of 2007. And so we have PhD students, who were here prior to the fall of 2007 who still have paper degree plans. Again, this system is really built upon the one approved degree plan and what the student, has approved. And since for those students, the one approved degree plan is not in the DPSS because it was submitted by paper, it is not going to be possible right now for those students to submit electronic documents. So if they have a paper degree plan, they're going to have to continue to submit paper petitions. Now, then there's also a group of about 5,000, a little over 5,000 students who have degree plans that have been submitted to the Office of Graduate Studies and approved, but since the time that they submitted that original degree plan, they've made changes by petition to those degree plans. Those students are also not right now going to be able to be in the electronic system because the document that's in the electronic system is not the most current document. Now, we have kind of 2 huge priorities right now that we have the system up and going. The first is that we really haven't changed what we have to do in the Office of Graduate Studies by introducing this electronic system. It does not matter today whether the document comes to us by paper or whether it comes to us electronically. We still have to do the same amount of work on it. What we've done is made it easier for the students and for the faculty, to submit the documents. So one top priority for me is to work with EIS to have more of the information flow from the document processing submission system directly into Compass so that there's less things that the Office of Graduate Studies staff has to rekey and re-enter. And so we've already started that process. So like I said, hopefully, within the next couple of months, you're going to see that, things are moving more quickly because we're having to do less actual work on them in the Office of Graduate Studies. But our second priority is to get the students who have electronic degree plans but have made changes to them collated so that the information we have in the electronic system reflects the information that is in Compass. And so what we did, because we kind of had to make a cutoff. We had to pick a date. So the date that we picked was February 1st of 2013. So for today, if a student has an approved degree plan on file prior to February 1st of 2013, they need to continue submitting paper petitions. Okay? If they have a degree plan that was approved by the Office of Graduate Studies after February 1st of 2013, then they'll be able to do everything in the electronic system. And like I said, we're going to work to get everybody updated in the electronic system as quickly as we can, so we don't anticipate that this is how it's going to be forever. But right now, I don't know for sure how long it's going to take us to get all of those. So let me say one more thing, and then I'll get to your question. So now, there are students, well, okay, two things. First of all, we're really going to need the pre-committee staff approvers' help to enforce this date. Because if a document gets to OGS and it's a document that should not have been submitted electronically, we're going to have to reject it back. And it would actually be much better for it to be rejected back early in the stage rather than when it gets all the way to OGS. So that's the first thing, as much help as you could give us. But the second thing is that if a student has submitted a degree plan that was submitted and approved prior to February 1st of 2013, and they've made no changes to it, it's going to be okay for them to go through the electronic system. But there wasn't really a way, so we're going to also need the pre-committee staff approver, because, for example, we have about 250 degree plans that we've approved in the last week. And so, obviously those students probably haven't had time to make any changes yet because their degree plan just got approved. And so that's another thing that we're going to ask the pre-committee staff approvers help with, because, like I said, if they technically have a degree plan that was approved prior to February 1st, but they've made no changes to that degree plan, it is going to be okay for them to go through the electronic system. And we're going to have to check that, but we ask that you check it as well. But especially in the cases of a committee change, if the student submits a document through the electronic system, it's not going to go to the correct people for approval. And if they've made a coursework change, the audit functionality is not going to be truly auditing the most recent information, so it may allow them to go through the system, but really it's not possible because it didn't have all of the information. And so like I said, we definitely will update everyone as quickly as we have those 5,000 plus students updated within the DPSS. But like I said, that's something that we decided that it was more important to get the system up and going and then work to convert those people than to do the work to convert them and not have the system up for anyone. So yes, sir.
So if someone entered and has a degree plan that was approved, but now they are changing their degree. So let's say they're PhD students and they are now changing to a master's.
Mm-hmm.
Is all of that done on paper because their original degree plan was approved?
Right, no. They could actually submit an MDD to make a change electronically. Well, maybe. No. I mean, the thing is, it depends on if their committee has changed. Because if the committee is not correct in the DPSS, the people giving them permission to make the change are not going to be correct. So, I mean, to be safe, it would be good to use the February 1st of 2013 guideline. And so if it's February 1st or before, they need to do paper. If it's February 1st or after, they need to do electronic.
Okay. And then once they have a new degree plan that reflects
Correct.
their new,
Then everything, correct, right, because then it's going to be after February 1st. And again, we realize right now, and the other thing, I mean, first of all, we're going to make improvements to where the information that's already in the system is going to be updated. But also we're going to get further and further past February 1st of 2013. So right now we have a disproportionate number of people in the system that were not able to do electronic things. But the further we move forward in time, the shift, that shift is going to change, and there's going to be less people who have paper documents, and we're still having to do things by paper just because we enough time has passed that we can now have them in the new system. And so like I said, so I realize that that's a little bit confusing and it's going to require a little bit of extra work. Now the other thing that's important for you to know is that the students do have the ability to determine when their degree plan was approved by the Office of Graduate Studies. If they look at their degree plan in the DPSS, they scroll down to the bottom, the date that every approver approved it is listed there. And so there's going to be an OGS staff person that's going to have approved it. So you can definitely pass some of the responsibility on to the students. And I'll show you, because one of the things I'm going to show you when we look at the system itself is the student view, and we have put a note in the view that the students see that says this. I mean, please note that if your degree plan was approved prior to February 1st, you're going to need to continue paper. So, I mean, again, we've tried to do as much as we can to make sure that students are aware of this, so that hopefully they can help you but we know that sometimes, they don't pay as much attention or they don't understand what they need to do. And so that's why we're really asking the pre-committee staff approvers to help as much as possible. Okay, so this is probably the most confusing part right now, so I just want to make sure that all of that makes sense.
Just a real quick.
Okay.
What is OGS's preference? If you have a student that wants to do a change of major degree or department, at this point, if they submit also a coursework petition and a committee petition, then they don't have to submit a new degree.
Correct.
With this new system, is that still a preference, or would you prefer?
No, with the new system, that's not going to be an option. They're only.
If they currently have a degree plan approved and they are going to change, would you prefer that they have?
No, I want them to follow this. I mean, so if they're prior to February.
The committee and the coursework along with the change of major.
If their degree plan was approved prior to February 1st. But if it was approved after, because what we want to get to is where we're not allowing that anymore, because that's actually way more difficult for us. It's much easier, yeah.
To just submit a change of major and then have their paper degree plan voided so that they would have to do an electronic degree
Yeah.
plan for this system.
No, because like I said, we're going to try to convert all that information a different way so that it doesn't require the student to have to do anything. We did, just to kind of give you an idea of those 5,000 plus students that we have to convert. My husband is a PhD student in the TLAC department. I use him as a test case for things that we're practicing all the time. And so he is pursuing a 96-hour degree plan, and he's made some pretty substantial changes to his degree plan, both in coursework and committee. And so we manually adjusted him, and it took about 45 minutes. And so, 45 minutes to manually adjust 5,000 plus students is, way too large of a time requirement. But we're pretty sure with feeds of information that we can get straight from Compass and feeds, of what's in the degree plan system, that we'll be able to do some things, electronically kind of behind the scenes to get the tables updated where, it's going to require some time, but it's not going to be as difficult as if we were doing it manually. Okay, so if there's not any other questions right now, we'll go ahead and start looking at the system. So the first thing that I've been pointing out, because this has actually always been the case, but I think it's even more important now, we do not limit the people who can log in as a student to only students. If you have a NetID and password, you can actually log in and create documents for yourself. We ask that you not submit them because we would prefer not to have incorrect documents floating out there. But it is actually, and all of us in OGS do this, and it's actually so much easier to discuss things with students, especially over the telephone, if you're in it and you're seeing what they're seeing. Okay, so if you haven't taken advantage of that or didn't even know about it, I definitely encourage you to do that, and especially with the expansion in the system, I think it'll help you because then you can get more familiar with what they're seeing. So we're going to log in as a student, and you're going to see I'm special because I already had a couple of degree plans in queue before, so that's why I still have 2, even though I technically don't have permission to have 2. And so this is what the student is going to see. So you'll see the note at the top that lets them know the February 1st of 2013 thing. We did tell them to contact their program's graduate advisor if they have questions. So if you're getting questions, they're following instructions like we told them to. And then they're going to be able to see their degree plan again, their 1 degree plan and the status that it's in, and then they're going to be able to see all of their petitions in reverse order. So the oldest will be at the bottom and the newest will be at the top. And so as petitions are being approved for them, the changes that those petitions request are going to be reflected in the degree plan that they can see. And so, so the degree plan will reflect the most recent document, but they could look through their petitions to remind themselves of what all changes they have made. And so like I said, so they'll be able to see that. So if they want to create a new petition, then, and I already set one up, but they're going to go in here, they're going to go to petition, and they're going to create new. But in my case, like I said, I've already done that, so we're just going to edit the one that I started. Okay, so the first thing that's going to do is it is going to populate their name, their official name, and it's a little bit lighter, so I don't know if you can see it, but it is their official name with the university. Okay, so we get a lot of questions about why is my name on my degree plan different. It's because this is what the university reflects their name to be. So if they'd like their name changed on these documents, they're going to have to go through the procedure to get their name officially changed with the university. We do not auto-populate their address because a lot of graduate students don't go in and update their address information in Howdy, like they're supposed to. So we give them an opportunity to, go ahead and tell us what their current address is. Okay, now the other thing that we've done in this system is we have tried to put as much logic in for the student as possible. Okay, so if I don't have a degree plan on file, which I don't, then there are only 2 things that I can do. I can do an MDD to change my major degree or department, or to add a program, or I can submit a long form and request a leave of absence. Okay, so as a student without an approved degree plan on file, I'm not even going to have those other options. They're there, but they're grayed out, so I can't get to them. Okay, because I can't submit a petition for course change or committee change because I don't have a degree plan yet to change. And so like I said, so we tried as much as we could, if once I have an approved degree plan on file, if I'm wanting to do a time limit extension, if I'm a PhD student, my only choices are going to be the 10-year time limit, the 4-year time limit, or the 1-year time limit. I'm not going to see the 7 because I'm not a master's student. And so like I said, we've tried to program in as much as we can to help the students know kind of what they need to do in their particular situation. So because well, hang on. Let's see, what type of petition? Yeah, MDD is very light there. I had previously chosen MDD, so I do have to continue with that one. Okay, it's going to remind me the 2 degree plans. So now I've said I want to do something to my major degree or department. It's going to remind me of the 2 degree plans that I already have in status. I mean, like I said, they're not complete, but they're there. It's going to ask me what semester I want the change to be effective. And I'm going to go ahead and say summer of 13. Okay, and then it's going to ask me what change I want to make. Okay, now I can change my major degree or department, which was previously the only choice. So if I'm going to change from a master's up to a PhD, I'm going to move from statistics to math. That's what I would choose. Now we do have some programs on campus that have 2 degrees. 2 majors within their particular department. And in some cases, those students make changes, of major, but their degree plans don't have to change because the courses that they would take, for ed psych versus counseling psych aren't going to be any different. And so because that does happen, we did make that to be a choice. And again, this shouldn't technically apply to me, but we couldn't keep it out. So there is an option for students to change their major, but keep their existing degree plan, and you can tell us that. And then there's an option to add an additional program. Okay. Now, if I already had permission to have 2 programs, then my choice would be delete one of the programs. And so I'm going to choose to change. Now, if I had an approved degree plan on file, it would auto-populate my current program for me. because it would know that I was a PhD in chemistry, for example. But because I don't yet have one on file, I am going to have to fill both things in. But if it knew I was a PhD in chemistry, then the current program information would be filled in, and all I would have to fill in is the requested program. So again, we've tried to put as much logic in as we possibly can to make it a little bit easier for the students and to help them be able to submit paperwork properly. Okay, so that's a little bit about what the student view looks like. And now I'll show you, I put myself in, my background is from the chemistry department, so that's always my fallback position. So I put myself in as a pre-committee staff approver within the chemistry department. Okay, as a pre-committee staff approver, you're going to see these three choices. And so if you have documents, this is the home screen, this is where it's going to come to automatically, and it looks similar for faculty, especially if you're the department approver. And so if you have documents that need to be approved, they're going to be listed here. Okay, so, and you see they're separated. The first is degree plan, the second is petition, okay, and then the third is petitions for secondary. Okay, there are now changes that students can make to where two separate groups have to give them permission to do it. So for example, if I'm a PhD in chemistry and I decide I want to move to biochemistry, if I have an approved degree plan on file, then the pre-committee staff approver in the chemistry department, my full committee, and the department have to sign it, giving me permission to leave chemistry. And then the pre-committee staff approver and the department approver in biochemistry have to give me permission to join. Okay, so in that case, the chemistry department is going to be the primary reviewers, and the biochemistry department is going to be the secondary reviewers, because the first group has to give permission before the second group can. And so, if I'm changing my committee, the professor that I'm asking to leave, the committee is going to have to approve it before the professor that is joining. And so like I said, so we're calling that primary and secondary. It also has to do with curricula, especially if the curricula are different. So the primary curricula is the main curricula that the student is in, and the secondary curricula is the second. So, like I said, if I'm primarily a PhD in educational psychology and I'm secondarily a Master of Education, then, so primary and secondary are going to be things that you're going to hear a little bit more often. But like I said, you'll be able to see the type of document and which status it's in that you need to approve. Okay, now the enhanced feature is found under all documents. Okay, so if you click on all documents, you'll be able to see that you can select degree plans based on the different statuses, or you can select petitions based on the particular statuses. So if you want to go in and look at all of degree plans that have been audited but not submitted, okay? And this is the very biggest reason that students don't get their degree plans approved on time, because they don't understand that once they've audited and successfully passed the audit, they have to go back and actually submit it. So we get students that are like, I submitted my degree plan 6 months ago, why haven't y'all approved it yet? And when we look, we're like, no, you audited it 6 months ago, but you never actually submitted it. So you can see the 3 students in the chemistry department who have, audited but not submitted their degree plans. So then you, if you were, the person in chemistry, could contact those 3 people and say, look, you probably think you've submitted your degree plan, but you haven't. You can also, like I said, these are all of the different statuses. So there is incomplete, audited but not submitted, awaiting pre-committee staff review, awaiting committee review, awaiting department review, awaiting OGS review, approved, rejected, and returned to student. The first one is if it's rejected by somebody other than OGS and it's been returned back to the student status. And then the final one is if it has been rejected and returned to OGS, by OGS. And then the petitions are the same way. So that gives you, as a pre-committee staff approver, more ability to keep up with students in the queue. If you go to your history, that's still the same. Those are all of the petitions the documents that have been approved by OGS, but now you have the ability to see them in the various statuses before that. Yes, ma'am.
For
approvals and there's more than one of us in the department, do we, especially when we're looking for status, is it only the ones we approved?
No, it's everything, and it's set to your particular department. So it's all the majors within your department. Yeah. And so then we're leaving it up to y'all to kind of figure out between yourselves, who's really going to approve what. But yes, you have the ability to see everybody's. And that was actually a good point because that came up this morning. So as a result of that, the pre-committee staff approver is not listed in the workflow specifically until they actually approve. So if you look, and this actually came up in 2 different phone calls this morning. A pre-committee staff approver opened up a document and said, I can see the committee chair and all the people, but my name is not listed. And that's because we don't want to predetermine is Joyce approving it or is Avery approving it. So once Avery approves it, then you will show up, as a person of record who did actually approve it. But the pre-committee staff approver is not going to show up beforehand because, like I said, you're right. There are a number of departments that have multiple pre-committee staff approvers, and the system doesn't want to predetermine, who might be doing it. So, like I said, that seemed to be a confusion that was happening some this morning. So, like I said, that's that's what the pre-committee looks like. Again, the faculty. And I don't know if you noticed on the login page, but we did add faculty and staff as a choice. Another confusion before was there was just a faculty button, and so staff didn't really know where they were supposed to log in. So we did add faculty staff. So again, we tried very hard. I mean, we had kept a running list of things, constructive criticisms that had been offered over the years that we had to say we can't do anything about that. And we really tried to work in as much of that as possible. So, obviously I've spent the past 18 months to 2 years working really, really hard on this. So I'm very pleased. We've also been very pleased. I really will have to say, I thought when we began training and began previewing this, that the people who liked it would say nothing, and only the people who didn't like it, are the ones that we would hear from. But I've been very pleasantly surprised. It seems like most people, overall, there's been some good suggestions, and again, good constructive criticism. But I think overall, everyone is basically pleased with the product that we designed. So we, of course, are now going to continue expanding. Ultimately what we want is what we're calling our Nirvana system, where everything flows electronically directly into Compass, and but it's going to start getting a little more complicated because the things that we've done up until now are all things that start with a student. So the student has to log in with a NetID and password. But for example, there's a number of departments on campus who, when they request a final exam, that's generated by the staff person. It's not necessarily generated by the student. And so, like I said, as we continue putting documents into the system, we're going to have some expanded features to accommodate the different ways that different programs do things. So like I said, we're definitely finally better on our way. The last improvement was really fall 2007. So now we're to spring of 2013. But like I said, I think our momentum is really going to where we should be able to continue making things electronic so that it can be submitted from anywhere that has internet access. And I've actually been telling people too, I had the opportunity to go to the Council of Graduate Schools national meeting in Washington, D.C. in December. And on the Texas A&M campus, I sometimes feel, it's embarrassing to say we're a Research One, institution. It's 2013, but please print this paper form, and take it around and have everybody sign it. And so one of the workshops that I went to before the conference was about tracking graduate students. And we are actually light years ahead of a lot of other institutions. Even institutions with as many students as we have. And so on the one hand, it was, a good sort of eye-opening experience because I ended up, even though I was by no means a presenter, like our little group, they were like, tell them what you did, tell them what y'all do, tell them what y'all do. And so, but again, there's a lot of other places that are even more antiquated than we are. So that did make me feel a little bit better. And so like I said, we're definitely continuing to make improvements where we can. So thank you very much. And if you have any specific questions, feel free to let me know.